So, if this video has found you, and for the people that it didn't, I think this is something that has been wanting to be expressed, and this video is for specifically a person that has been really seeking. So what do I mean by really seeking? And this one might be a long video as well. A true seeker is somebody that's willing to drop everything in order to take on a path, a very harsh path, towards finding out for himself what is the truth. And there are many different spiritual teachers. There's various kinds of books, sources out there. But the wise seeker tends to realize that this content that's being absorbed is just words, it's just sounds, it's just interpretations of, whether it may be interpretations of your mind based on your past experiences. You know, when you receive something, those impressions, which is the samskaras that are there deep within the self structure, you know, all of those things play a role. And also being observant that what I am, if it has not been experienced, that answer has not been received through an own direct experience, then the seeker tends to walk on a path that, and this is why they say it can take lifetimes. So, you know, then they create, a spiritual teacher will sort of create an urgency. It may tell you that, you know, focus on the now, the present moment, because what you're looking for is here and now, and that is true. But it's still a method. You see, it's still a method. So there's a sage, an ancient sage, known by the name of Patanjali. And Patanjali, he basically imparted, rather imparted, but categorized yoga, because it was all over the place. There was no proper structure, because any path can take one many lifetimes, basically. So the whole point of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras were designed in such a way, and remember, it's categorized in such a way that it just says, if you open one door, right, just keep knocking in this direction, but here's the manual, here's the guide, here's sort of some do's and don'ts, basically, so that you kind of dig in the, not really the right direction, but in a direction where there may be a higher chance of success. And there've been a lot of great spiritual teachers that have come, and you know, they've given their teachings, they've helped a lot of people. And the only reason why I do this is because, firstly, I saw there's no benefit of even talking about anything about spirituality, because it's kind of pointless. But I think over the years I started to realize that maybe these words put and articulated in a certain structure can help somebody. You know, it may not help everybody, but it may help somebody, and whoever that is, maybe they need to hear something in a specific way in order for something to kind of unfold, basically. So where we're going with this video at this point, I'm just basically feeling from within myself as to what actually does arise, and that is a clearing process as well. So and someone that may find this video, they may be like, why is he taking so long to answer the question, right? Firstly, that question cannot be answered in a specific way, like in the ancient tradition, when a spiritual teacher, I'm not a spiritual teacher, I'm just a vessel here that's making sounds. So they would always put a student or a disciple, they put them through this harsh training and this preparation. And through this preparation, after a certain point, the teacher then gives a specific practice or a specific teaching. That's the general way. And it's also effective because one doesn't realize that what they are is not that which is seeking. That person who you experience yourself as is not the one that is you. Right? When you awaken, that happens. And then there's some traditions where they talk about their spiritual experiences, and then there's other traditions where they don't talk about their spiritual experiences. And the ones that actually do talk about their spiritual experiences, so I came from you can say a spiritual culture that did not talk about spiritual experiences, one, specifically because of the fact that after some time, if one hasn't had enough experiences, this is specifically for that individual. If they have a little experience of maybe an outer body experience, or they have a glimpse of something beyond their physical nature, or they see God or whatnot, they tend to create an identity attachment to that. I am special now, I've had this experience, or I'm special now, this so and so spiritual master showed up, his image came up from my meditation or something like that. So that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is, because sometimes I do go into some experiences, not too deep, but I go into some experiences. The reason why I do that is because I've been through so much of experiences, and experiences is just part of the changing phenomenon. It's there to, and this is the best approach to look at it, it's there just to motivate you to kind of dig deeper. That's all. If you use it in that sense, then it doesn't matter. So from this perspective, that's how it's looked at. So that's why I kind of go into this stuff. So to answer the question, if you found this video, like I said in the beginning, this is definitely your, there's a sense of hesitation saying this as well, because I don't think I haven't come across anyone that has any spiritual teacher, to be specific. If any of you guys have, then please let us know in the comments. But yeah, if you've come across this video, this is your It's a bit it's a bit hard for even that to come out, but the title is it. It's the last round, and there's nothing that happens by coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences. And the spiritual path is not about believing in anything. It's not about taking a belief into something. It's about, digging deep and finding out the truth. So, if you look at the Buddha, right? He had everything. He was born as a prince, Gautama the Buddha. And when we hear that, to leave everything behind, right? We kind of mentally understand that as, okay, I must leave my family, I must go to the mountains, or I must do something that revolves around eliminating things from the physical life. And that is not it. Unfortunately, that is not it. And many of the spiritual seekers or aspirants, they're very enthusiastic. They hear that, or they read about that, or they met people along the way, and they think they have to do this, otherwise liberation and enlightenment and all this stuff will never happen, right? So this life event or life story here of this person, right, that is speaking here on this camera, right? This person was in a family situation, not isolated. So I did the silence and all the kind of Vipassana Buddhism, kind of approach, doing yoga and all that stuff, right? But it has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with anything external, because the dropping of everything is completely internalized. What do I mean by that? So maybe you have an attachment to your parents, right? That this is my parents. Or maybe when you go to brush your teeth in the morning, you look in the mirror and you'd be like, this is me, I'm brushing my teeth. So subconsciously, I can go on and on like this, but subconsciously in your mind rather, there's a picture being painted of what is I. So even when you speak, the language itself, I am going here. Do you know what this person said to me? So all these words that you use, that you point to yourself, right? That identity that you create about yourself. So, and the best way to look at it is, let's just say something tragic happened in your life, maybe a car accident, or maybe, I don't know, maybe you got injured or something, whatever it is, doesn't matter. In that moment, right, sometimes you experience something called as an ego death, or now they call it a dark night of the soul. That's the new word that goes around. So it's a process of dying, right? And then in Zen, there's a saying of learning to die before you die. And that is kind of important, because when you die, what death means that who am I? What am I? What is being referred to as I, as the self, that which is experiencing everything, right? That person that has been created by you dies. So that is death. So death, in a way, in other words, death is the I that I think and feel and experience as myself coming to an end. So if you're able to create an inner condition, so if you're able to create I wouldn't say a situation, but kind of struggling to find the right word. I would say a container. So if you're able to create a container within yourself of no escape, that's simply what a practice called as vipassana is. Now you don't have to really go and do vipassana, but the whole point of vipassana is to create a container of no escape so that you kind of really hit the nail. But ironically, there's no nail to hit. But it's just a figure of speech. But yeah, if you're able to do that, then yes, awakening can happen, and you don't need to leave your family. You don't need to go anywhere. You can remain as everything is. And the best part about a spiritual awakening is the fact that I've experimented with this multiple times, and I know there is guidelines and stuff. Maybe if you follow a spiritual teacher, they'll say don't do this and do that, and that kind of a thing. Yes, it can help to some extent, but you have to test this out for yourself. You have to experiment and have a direct experience for yourself to know. And the spiritual part, don't believe anything. Even what I am saying, don't believe it. You must find out for yourself. That's the only way. There's the only way is for you to find out for yourself, and only you can answer that question within yourself. Now, I'm still going to answer the question of what this video is titled. But I don't want the mind to kind of like feel like, oh no, he's just messing around here. No. And the only reason why I'm creating this because I think this must be out there at least. This must be accessible to some people. That way they, it can serve some benefit. So, liberation, right? Liberation. That's what every spiritual seeker is aspiring for. It can only happen when you truly die. When you the you that you experience yourself comes to an end, a complete end. So there's no to put it simply, liberation, to know what that is, you have to die. You have to experience death itself. And if for some reason, like in my case, you come back from that, then you end up life has its own very funny ways of expressing itself. And it's important that in the video as well, when there is maybe a slight pause, just remain in that. Just be aware of that and see what moves, because anything that moves in that is not you. Right? That's a spiritual pointer right there, and you can use that for a lot of things. And you don't really necessarily have to do meditation if you basically do that all the time. If you're kind of used to doing that on autopilot, that is simply what meditation is. So when you die and you experience in that of yourself coming to an end, then you kind of wake up. And they call it awakening because it's like It's like simply like this. Like imagine if you're sleeping, right? And you're having a dream, and in the dream, I would maybe most of the time, if you haven't had a lucid dream, but most of the time when you're dreaming, you kind of don't recognize that you're dreaming. You don't know that you're dreaming, right? You believe you're the person in the dream, the story, it's happening, it's all real that you're experiencing. But only the moment when you actually wake up, then you realize, it's just a dream. But what must be pointed out there specifically is a level of awareness that happens. So there's a different sense of awareness that's in a dream state, and then when you wake up, there's a different sense of awareness. And in some spiritual teachings, they'll say that you are the I am, or they'll say that you are that which is not, or you are awareness. There's different words that thrown around, soul and all this consciousness and stuff. These are all just concepts. They don't mean anything. They don't really, they can help to some extent, but it's impossible. So to answer the question, right? It's not really a question. What you are is literally a figment of the creator's imagination or dream world. So in Hinduism they call it Maya, which means illusion. So the illusion has rules. So obviously if you jump off a building, you will feel pain in your body, or you might die. But we're not talking about that kind of death. We're not talking about that at all. This is a different sense of death. And when you awaken, you realize that you are not. You realize what you are not, or you realize what you are. You can look at it in both ways. And from that, you start to see. I was going to make a separate video about this part here, but I'm going to put it in one video. They ask the question, does God exist and stuff? So God is always seen as, there is a God that has created, everything and stuff. And that is true. But from when you hear that with the mind, right? When you experience yourself, what you are as the person who is maybe watching or listening, whatever, that is you. That is the you that you are. And that is also true because when you die, that you does come to an end, right? There's no more reincarnation and all this stuff. It's you that comes to an end. And J.D. Krishnamurti, he said this very funny quote, and this is one of my favorite quotes of J.D. Krishnamurti. He said, the Indians, I'm not quoting it 100%, but he said the Indians, they believe in something called reincarnation, but they fail to question what really does reincarnate. And he put it very beautifully. And that's all you can do when you awaken. You can grab people from the past, beautiful ways of putting certain things that I don't know how they were able to articulate certain truths, but yeah, you can only copy and paste their words and put it in some way, or you can speak directly from that, but then there's nothing to speak about. So yes, so when you die, you do come to an end, and then there's no more rebirth for you. But in some traditions, they spoke of, Jesus in Christianity offering everlasting life and things like that. And I think it's very misunderstood in terms of the teachings that he gave. And that everlasting life is when you have a spiritual awakening to what you are. You realize that you were never born and you never die. So both are true, but as if you live your entire life without awakening, you will experience yourself as the person with a body, mind, emotion, knowledge gathered, etc. And you will die and you will come to an end. Where the awakening has happened, there's immortality for that person because they know the true nature, and then they live on the planet knowing their true essence, knowing their true nature of who they are. So you always see God as, He's created everything. So there is a creator which you are beyond the body, beyond the mind, beyond the emotion, beyond everything that you think you are. That is you. And only that exists, dreaming the whole entire creation into being. And at the same time, experiencing every single living creature as a separate individual experience, all moving towards, all the spirituality moving towards something called union, one with God. And, there's very many ways that you can actually put it, right? That which is questioning, looking and stuff and seeking for answers, and the one that is talking to you will die and will never ever come back again. But the absolute nature which you are is that which is creating everything, and it's in control of everything. So one thing I like to highlight: when awakening happens, there's no more person. The person it doesn't exist. So you can, Krishna, he mentioned divine game of Leela, which is the divine game of play, which translates to that in English. And I think the most important thing is that you experience life to its max, and knowing that when you die, when your time comes to die, you've truly lived in its full depth and full dimension. And it doesn't necessarily have to be you being a multi-billionaire and going to places and traveling and all that stuff. There's nothing wrong with that, but everything, whatever is there, wherever you think it is, it's now and also available here in this moment. Not this moment I'm recording this video, in the current moment which you are watching or listening. And yeah, this is, if you've crossed this video, we just hit the 30-minute mark, 30:30 exactly. This is definitely your last lifetime. And I'll tell you the funny thing about this. Although I made this video, it will pass through people because they're not the character which they believe who they are, needs to get something, needs to obtain something, and nothing will ever change. And that's the beauty about it. But like I said in the beginning, maybe one person, it may hit them, and something may unfold from their life experience.